being able to tilt your hips forward or anteriorly and backwards or posteriorly is important. If you're able to do those well and optimally, then when you need to use all of the muscles on the front of your body or the anterior kinetic chain together and the posterior kinetic chain, all the ones on the back, together, you can do that better, okay? So if you think about the bony parts of your hips as the size of a bowl, it's a little bit easier to picture how you might be able to tilt anterior or posterior, okay? So when you're trying to perform anterior tilts, okay, that's mostly in life dynamic movements, all right? So what that means is when you're performing things like running or lunging, things where you're moving, that's really mostly where you're utilizing this. You don't necessarily need to practice it by itself statically, okay? Conversely, with your posterior tilt, your backwards tilt, you do need to practice that both ways, okay? So it's beneficial dynamically to oppose the dynamic anterior tilt, and it's beneficial statically or not moving in things like bracing. Okay, that's probably the most important one. Bracing your back and your ab, okay? And then it can also be used for things like positions or poses like push-ups, things like lifting weight over your head, okay? That might be for bracing. A hollow body position where you might use that for a handstand or a pull-up, okay? Things like that. So now I'm going to give you some exercises and things that you can work on to help you with both of those for anterior and posterior tilt of your hips, okay? So as we move our hips, we're really actually trying to target the muscles that perform those actions, all right? So that's mostly going to be abs, glutes, back, and everything surrounding those areas, all right? So for your first one, for an anterior tilt, to target these, we're actually going to be moving in and out of anterior and posterior tilt with the cat-cow from yoga, okay? So it looks like this. I'm going to start here neutrally, and then press your back to the ceiling. Okay, so this one is cat. You're trying to press your navel or your belly button toward the ceiling. Okay, and breathe out. And then opposite. All right, and look up. Inhale for this one. All right, and then you move between the two. Okay, so for your posterior tilt this time, we're going to be practicing something called the hollow body hold, okay? So this is the best way to practice for your static hold, and it transfers to your dynamic as well, okay? So you can literally use this when you're doing push-ups, when you're doing pull-ups, when you're bracing for lifting stuff over your head, like over your waist, across your midline, anything like that, all right? So I'm going to explain and then I'll show you, okay? So I'm going to be a little bit farther away so you can see all of it, all right? So you're going to be laying on your back with a neutral spine. There's going to be a little bit of space between the small of your back and the ground. The goal is to try to press that toward the ground so that that space becomes nothing, okay? So it looks like this. Flat on your back. You can see there's space here. When you contract, your feet will come up. There's now no space, okay? Trying to press your belly button toward the ground. Okay? So that's how it looks. Practice holding. The more you exhale, the more you'll be able to contract your abdomen toward the ground and get that even further, okay? So one pro tip when you're doing this one, if you point your toes and you look at your toes, you'll engage the whole posterior kinetic chain of your body, okay? And you'll practice actually using all of that together, so it will be easier and you'll be able to do it better when you start integrating it into other movements, all right? If If you like what you see, subscribe and follow. Thanks.